Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and today I'm going to talk about the best movies of the summer of 2015. I think it was a pretty good summer. I liked a lot more films than I usually like during the summer movie season, both Hollywood films and non-Hollywood films. And I think it was actually a great time to go to the movies. There are some pretty outstanding movies that at least made it worthwhile for you to keep going back to the movies. It was very up and down, but the highs were higher than most summers get, I think. And I really was happy with this summer for the most part. I mean, I wasn't with things like Tomorrowland or Fantastic Four was kind of a mess, or Pixels, or Terminator Genesis, and especially like the worst movie of the summer, Hitman Agent 47. But overall, I think it was actually a really good summer. There's a lot of great movies to see. I look at these lists as kind of recommendation lists. I don't take them as seriously as my best films of the year list at the end of the year. I kind of just pick the films that I feel that are the best of that particular period, and there's no exact number I pick each time. It just really depends on how many of these movies I feel are definite recommends to people. The films that I feel like are the best of this summer that I would tell someone you should absolutely see these, which I think is the most I've had for best of the summer video, but it really was a good summer. These are really the films that I would recommend and I think were really the best of what the summer of 2015 had to offer. And I actually numbered them this time. Most of the time it's just like, here's some movies, I don't know. Number 9, Shaun the Sheep movie. Visual storytelling is something that's very unique to filmmaking and something that filmmaking does better than almost any medium. It can really tell an entire story without ever saying a word. Watching a cartoon that's told completely through visuals is an amazing thing to watch, and I'm always impressed with a filmmaker who can just tell a story visually. And it makes Shaun the Sheep a lot more interesting than probably it has any right to be. The story isn't that great, really. It's kind of generic in a lot of ways, but the way it does it is just so interesting and so much more fun. It plays like a really joyous, fun cartoon by people who actually care about making one of those. Number 8, Doors Nicole. The thing about most movies about teenagers during the summer is it usually is kind of a backdrop so they can have a plot for something that no one really ever does that's completely unique to a situation, never really captures, like the humdrumness, the boredom, the looking at your ceiling, waiting for night to fall so you can go out and party with your friends kind of summer, the way this movie does. Doors Nicole reminds me more of those summers than any summer movie I've ever seen before. In fact, sometimes when I was watching scenes, I kept remembering summers I had. Everyone acts like after that summer I was never the same, or it was the last summer of our childhood, or some nonsense like that. This movie really captures the emotion of summer, the mood of summer, better than I've seen a lot of movies do. Now, 6 and 7, I wouldn't take their rankings as seriously. Not that I didn't like them, but I'm not sure. They're kind of tied, but you know, whatever. Ranking's stupid. Let's be honest, it's stupid. But speaking of ranking, at number 7, Mission Impossible Rogue Nation. The Mission Impossible film series has become a very reliable, enjoyable, entertainment blockbuster franchise. In a lot of ways, more so than any other franchise I can think of that started in the 90s and has kept going for this long. With the exception of the second one, every one I've enjoyed immensely. Even though it's using the IMAX, which is more of the modern movie landscape, it's kind of taking a page from classic Hollywood blockbusters where it wants to wow you. Those stunts are amazing. I had such a fun time. It was awesome. And that's the real Hollywood showmanship that comes out of these Mission Impossible movies that kind of keeps people coming back. These are kind of like more older school Roger Moore-ish James Bond movies. They're kind of like if the Pierce Brosnan type of James Bond movies actually turned out to be good post GoldenEye, with the gadgets and with the set pieces. If you don't like the seriousness of the modern Bond movies, I would actually say the Mission Impossible franchise fulfills that need a lot better than the actual James Bond movies right now. Number 6, Avengers Age of Ultron. As comic book movies advance and we keep making sequels and having more continuity and having a shared universe, you're not really going to have that first, that oh my god, blank see blank has finally made it to the big screen. That's kind of over. And it's an interesting world to be in at that point, because I think that is actually the new thing, where, okay, well, what are you going to do now? Avengers Age of Ultron answers that question incredibly incredibly well. If you've read comics for years and years, it's not like you read origin stories for years and years. You read the continuing adventures of that superhero team or that superhero. And Avengers Age of Ultron reflects that. Avengers Age of Ultron has a lot more in common with, theoretically at least, like Avengers issue 45 than it does Avengers issue 1 in the Ultimates. And that's really the Avengers. Through its continuity, with something Marvel's always done really well with its continuity, is show how that there's never like a happy ending where they've defeated the bad guy and life can move on, they're heroes. There's no thing where you're gonna get married and have a bunch of kids and then there's a happy ending and life's over. That's completely unrealistic. And I think that's the ways that Marvel has made itself more relatable, is that it shows life better. It shows how life always has challenges and there's new things that are going to hit you. There's never that point where like everything's going to be okay. And it lets the characters grow. It also allows them to make more comic books and movies, so maybe there's a financial thing with it, but let's just go with the idea that it's more like life because that sounds better. Number 5, Tangerine. As soon as it rockets off to bouncing heartbeats, as soon as Cindy goes and tries to look for the girl that her fiance Chester has been cheating on her with while she was in jail for the past month, it just goes off and it just hits you and you're in it. You're kind of just along for the ride in a lot of it, and it's just a glorious ride to be on. Just the cinematography brings a certain energy to it. It's just a film you kind of can't deny how much fun it is, even if it does things that a normal, more Hollywood film would polish up. This film can kind of get away with it because you're just so in it. You can't let go and the film's not letting go of you, and you're just twisting around in an amazing, like, fun film going experience, and just make one of the most fun films I've seen this summer. And I think Tangerine is that kind of a movie. It's the kind of film that makes you realize the potential in small budget filmmaking. Number 4, When Marnie Was There, represents more of the slice of life films that you expect from Studio Ghibli. I think everyone thinks of it like there's the fantastical ones and there's the slice of life ones, but this is like an interesting, nice marriage of the two, just more on the side of the slice of life side than you'd probably expect from Studio Ghibli at this time. The character of Anna feels like a real Studio Ghibli female protagonist in that she comes into the situation one person and kind of grows up and matures throughout it. And it's not the kind of progression where it feels like the film like patting you on the back. It feels like natural, especially how angry she is and how she blows up at this one girl at one point. Reminded me of being a teenager and just doing stupid things and not really understanding your emotions and having hormones and going through puberty, not having control over that. And I've noticed in some reviews people don't exactly understand, like, she just feels like random, but that's like kind of what being a teenager is. You don't really understand your emotions. There's no real reason for her to be in this depression. Her reasons for being in this depression are a little weird, but that's kind of what it's like being a teenager. You'll take something very personally, you'll suddenly snap at someone, you'll feel very isolating. I feel like I was kind of like Anna a lot. I really related to that. That was kind of more of the teen I was. And the whole idea of just getting wrapped up in something and kind of forgetting about all your troubles works really well in this film because it works organically. Because when you get wrapped up in something to forget about your troubles, you don't think about your troubles. So this film doesn't think about that. And they don't have that moment in this film because you don't need to have it, because that's not natural. That's something I like about Studio Ghibli films. It lets these characters be human in a way that other narratives feel like they need to explain it to you. And if you feel like you need that explained to you, you're a dumber viewer than you realize. Number 3, Mistress America. Making a modern film that's very influenced by older studio comedies is something Hollywood, especially in the 90s, has tried to do many times, and it usually doesn't work. It usually looks very fake and very Hollywood and looks like an echo of a former gloried past of the ancient Hollywood studio system. Mistress America is an exception to that and really recaptures the kind of lighter screwball comedies of Hollywood yore and brings them to the modern setting in such an amazing way that it reminds me of the relatability of those films. And it shows how wonderful that can really be and how smart something like that can really be and how personal it can be at the same time. I think you could watch this film and go, oh, that was a nice kind of lighter fare, but there's a lot of thought and intelligence that went into this film. And the smartest thing about it is you could easily watch this film and not see that going on within it, and that's not an insult. That's actually very high praise. Now, these are the top 2, and I will say I think these, out of everything on here, have the best chance of getting on my year-end list, unless the rest of the year is like so fucking amazing that I couldn't, but I seriously got it because I think these 2 movies are great. Number 2, Inside Out. One of the original kind of big Pixar brain trust was Pete Docter, and he's finally back with his third film, his follow-up to Up, and it kind of reminds me of sitting back and watching a classic Pixar movie from their incredible run. It feels like they're back. Now, he hasn't actually been anywhere. He takes a lot longer making films than the other people in Pixar, but it feels like that return because this is a film that is about emotion. It feels more personal. It feels more intimate. It feels like all those things that a great Pixar movie should be, but at the same time, it feels like a great movie. It feels adventurous. It feels new. It feels different. The thing that's interesting about this film is it's so creative. It's so weird. It's so different. I mean, it's literally a film about emotions. I mean, that's abstract and strange, but it doesn't feel that way. It feels very big and Hollywood and really well constructed, and like you can follow it. It cares so much about emotion, but I think it's so dumb to say emotion when you're reviewing this film, but it's so true. It's like it cares about emotion, but it feels large. It feels like a blockbuster. And you know, people are always talking about stakes, and stakes are too high and ridiculous and everything, but the stakes in this are so easily understood. It feels bigger than attacking a giant robot who's going to destroy the world or dinosaurs or anything like that. It feels so much more important because it reaches and tells you something. And the number one best movie of the summer of 2015 is Mad Max Fury Road. Understands the theoretical idea to making a Mad Max movie. It is exactly the kind of Mad Max film theoretically that should happen now, and is the best way to push the franchise forward. It takes modern action films, it takes the insane craziness that we expect from a car chase movie like Fast and the Furious, and amps it up far louder than we could have possibly imagined. And this film feels like someone who hasn't made an action movie in a very long time, that he has just been brimming with ideas and excitement and wanting to apply all these amazing skills he's gotten from working in animation, from working in all these different kind of films, to have it just explode from the brim with awesome action ideas. It's one of the craziest car movies I've ever seen. If you think a Fast and the Furious movie is too kinetic and crazy for you, you are not ready for this movie. You can't take this movie. So that was my best of the summer of 2015 list. I think it's a pretty good list. I'm happy with it. I'm happy that I saw such great movies this summer. I don't know if anyone's surprised I didn't put Jurassic World, but I didn't like Jurassic World that much. You know, it was fine, you know. Jurassic World wasn't that bad, but it wasn't that good either. It was just kind of like, okay, you know, babysitter gets eaten, dinosaurs fight. That's like the whole movie. I've said it many times in these videos. One of the things I notice when I look back at a season is when I go see a movie on demand or see a movie at the art theater or see a big movie, I'm usually getting to see better movies because I'm trying to be diverse about it, even though most of the time I'm at the multiplex, to be honest. And the multiplex can get as boring as the art theater can in some places. So just try to be diverse in your movie watching choices and you won't get as bored with movies. But I thought it was a cool summer. I'm actually going to look back on my summer viewing season with pleasant memories of seeing awesome movies and having pretty decent movie theater air conditioning. And what more can you really ask for from summer movie season? Cooling down while watching a great summer movie is kind of what summer movies and the summer movie season is all about. And I definitely did that quite a few times with quite a few awesome movies, as you can tell, during the summer movie season. So this list reflects that. I think they're all great movies and I definitely recommend them, and recommend them enough to make a video telling you about how awesome they are. So if you have seen any of the movies I selected for the best movies of the summer of 2015 and you would like to talk about them, or you would like to list what you thought were the best movies of the summer of 2015, or even the worst movies of the summer of 2015, then comment below in the comments. Thank you very much for watching, and subscribe if you would like to.